Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and this video will be part 2 of the luxury lessons that I've learned. I did part 1 in 2020, which was more focused on the buying and selling process. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it below. This video is much more about my general thoughts about luxury, collecting, social media, and decision making. I'll sprinkle some eye candy throughout the video that also illustrate some of these points. The first lesson that I've learned is not to use handing down to kids as a justification for either buying or keeping luxury items. There will always be some exceptions, but this is my general rule of thumb. So I've seen many cute bags over the years that I either knew were too trendy, I wouldn't get much wear out of, but I kind of just really wanted them. And one of the justifications that always came to mind was that it's so cute, my daughter will love it when she grows up. Luckily, I squashed that idea because there are just so many cute things that kids could possibly love when they grow up. But if I purchased things with that mindset, I would just accumulate so much stuff. And for me, it's important to buy things that I love now and I think that I'll love for a really long time. And if my daughter happens to love them and wants to keep them as an adult, even better. But accumulating things now with her in mind 10, 20 years from now is really just a recipe for hoarding for me. Especially if you have a kid like mine that's really into bags and shoes and all things sparkly, it would be pretty easy to justify buying all sorts of things with her in mind. She's actually currently trying to convince me that I need a red Birkin 25. So I've told you guys in multiple videos, I am keeping my first Louis Vuitton bag for her, and that's pretty much it. If I want to buy a bag, I'm buying it because I love it now and feel that I can get use out of it now, as opposed to will she like it 20 years from now. Who knows what her taste will be when she grows up, and even if she loves bags and clothes, she may not have my exact taste. And moreover, if she's really a lover of luxury accessories, she's probably going to want to build a collection of her own without worrying about storing all of her mother's 20, 30-year-old bags. In 20 years, would she really want this cute pink Fendi bag that I think is adorable and I'd like to try now? Or would she rather the equivalent in cash? So that's just a conclusion that I've come to, and it also really helps me not to justify overbuying things that I just think are cute and I want to try. My second luxury lesson learned is that YouTube, and especially luxury YouTube, is for entertainment purposes only. Now, I learned this lesson a long time ago, and it has really made my time on YouTube as both a consumer and a creator more enjoyable. So I came to this realization when I was reading the comments of a video about a bag that I had in my collection then, and I still have now, that the YouTuber had previously raved about, but they were now selling. And people were going in on the YouTuber in the comments. They were accusing her of all sorts of things, buying to resell, using her gullible audience to offload bags, buying to show on her channel, and then returning or reselling. And I began to think about why all these people were so upset. Clearly, many of the people who were watching the video and commenting had this bag, and many, I think, had bought this bag on the recommendation of this YouTuber. And it almost seemed like they felt betrayed when she was now trashing this bag. But I began to think about why they were so upset that she was selling this bag, and I didn't really care one way or the other. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it had to do with the fact that I was consuming YouTube in a very different way than many of the people that were getting very upset in the comments. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. I watched this person's original rave review of this bag, but I watched it for very different reasons. I wanted to see how much the bag held, what the strap was like, close-ups of the bag in comparison to other bags that I have. All information that you're not going to get on the company's website. And then I made an informed decision to get the bag after that. Now, everything else in the video, how much this YouTuber loved the bag, it was the best thing ever, it was a forever bag. For me, that's the entertainment part, but that didn't really influence my decision to buy the bag. So when she came back at a later date with a litany of complaints, that didn't really affect me one way or the other, because all of the things that she was talking about were really minute details that didn't really affect my enjoyment of the bag, and it didn't make me dislike her as a creator. But clearly other people people felt differently. Many of the things that I just considered her opinion and entertainment were very influential in them deciding to purchase the bag. I also think there may be other aspects to it. I think some people feel like having the same items as a certain creator connects them to part of this luxury club. People may fear that, especially when larger creators trash an item, the resale value will plummet. So I think there may be many reasons. However, I do think if you go into watching any luxury YouTube video, including mine, with the mindset that this is all for entertainment purposes only, there's some factual information that you can get, size of bag, strap length, etc. But everything else are opinions that should not affect whether or not you love the things that you love. I think this mindset has helped me resist all sorts of trends. I feel like there were so many YouTube videos in the last 3 to 4 years suggesting that my larger Chanel classic flaps were outdated. I probably should sell them. But just because these tiny little bags work for other people doesn't mean they're going to work for me. It seemed like all of a sudden a Chanel jumbo, which everyone thought was the perfect bag, was too heavy. The weight was unbearable. Some people definitely had some health issues, I think, that would make a bag like the Chanel jumbo too difficult to carry. But it seemed like suddenly a whole community of people developed neck, shoulder, and back pain that made the Chanel jumbo too heavy to carry, which may in fact be true, but I think it really is more about the influence of the community. But also as a community, we seem to love the Birkin 30, which is heavier than a jumbo and more difficult to carry because there's no strap. So it's just a matter of taste and what's popular at a given time. But I think it's hard to justify no longer using or selling a bag that you've spent thousands of dollars for, that you used to love. And so I think it's natural to justify why the bag no longer works for you. When in reality, I just think you're kind of over it right now and you've moved on to something else. But I think people think that that's frivolous to say. And so I can watch a video about why someone is selling their Chanel jumbo, and it isn't an arbiter of my decision to keep mine one way or the other. If I did that, I would be in a constant state of buying and selling. Conversely, if larger bags do ever really come back and you are loving your tiny little micro bag, don't give up your micro bags because these big bags are coming back. I think if you allow other people's opinions about what works best for them to influence your decision making about what to buy and what to sell, it can only lead to disappointment. And as far as the huge luxury lifestyle influencers, I consume their content in much of the same way that I previously read Elle magazine or Harper's Bazaar. And that is with the understanding that advertisers are paying them a huge amount of money to make me want to buy something. So they always seem to get the same kind of criticism that they're promoting luxury as fast fashion and it's unrelatable and wasteful. And all of that may very well be true, but the reality is if they came on their platforms and said, hey, it's 2022, I'm gonna tell you what's in style for this year and what's out, but I know that you bought a lot of really expensive stuff that I suggested you buy last year, and all of that stuff is still great. So even though I'm gonna tell you about the latest and greatest for this year, don't go buy any of it because I'm just gonna tell you that it's all out of style next year anyway. Well, if they did that, they'd all be out of a job. So again, I just take in their content as paid advertorials. Those people that I view on a regular basis, I just happen to like their personality, but I understand that it's their job. And maybe once in a while, they'll recommend something that really speaks to me, but 99% of the time, I consume their content in much the same way I would flip through a Vogue. I'm not gonna buy 99% of the things that are advertised in that magazine. So I hope you see my point. I've learned that social media can be a great resource to get some factual information that you may not be able to get from brands themselves, but for the most part, I consume and enjoy it as purely entertainment. My third luxury lesson learned also has to do with social media, and that is, although YouTube, Instagram, forums, groups have some very knowledgeable people, and you can get a lot of great information, there are certain things that I just need to ask actual experts that work for the brand. And I'll give you an example. I feel like a couple of years ago, ago, there were a number of people that just really disliked Hermes Epsom leather. They said it was plasticky, it scratched super easily. When it scratched, you could see white under it. It didn't feel luxurious. Once it's scratched, Hermes will not repair it. And when I was thinking about my first Birkin years ago, I almost let that influence my decision. Even though I knew that in the size 30, I wanted a more lightweight and structured leather, so it made sense that Epsom would be the leather for me, but I was a little scared off by what people were saying on YouTube. And so it wasn't until I spoke with my SA and I told her of my concerns, and she said to me, "Where are you getting this information?" And I told her, and she said, "If you have those kinds of questions, we have a leather repair specialist here. You are absolutely welcome to talk to that person and get real information." But after having owned my Birkin 30 in Epsom for 3 years now, it really is a pleasure to carry, and it is so much more lightweight than my Togo Birkin. There are some negatives that people have said about Epsom that I have found to be the case. Confirmation bias exists, and so when someone has something, they feel the need to talk it up. It's the best thing ever, but it's not like that for me. I also have a Togo Birkin, and I could have bought this bag in Togo. I was also offered the black Birkin 30 in Togo leather with rose gold hardware, so it's not like I could not have gotten this bag in Togo had I wanted it. But all in all, I will say that I'm happy that I didn't listen to anyone on YouTube. I went with my gut and bought my first Birkin in Epsom. I love that bag. It is such a pleasure to carry. My next luxury lesson learned is that I am not a gatekeeper of luxury. And what I mean is that I don't get particularly bothered if something that I have or have had for many years suddenly becomes popular. For example, I have been a lover of Hermes for about 10 years, first with their accessories and then later fell in love with their bags. It doesn't bother me the way that it seems to bother other people that Hermes became super in demand in the last 2 years. Other than that, it's now much more difficult for me to get the bags that I want, but that's another issue altogether. For a few reasons. Firstly, I wasn't born in New York City, but I was raised here. So I remember as a little girl going to Lord & Taylor, Saks Fifth Avenue for a special day out and seeing these beautiful New York City women with their big bags and their clover necklaces. Of course, I had no idea that these women were wearing Hermes and Van Cleef, but I fell in love with that style of simple luxury dressing. So I think it would be pretty ridiculous for me, who only started buying Hermes 10 years ago, to feel like I have any kind of ownership over wearing those kinds of items, or somehow look down on people who discovered the brand later than I did. Secondly, if you live in a place like New York, London, Singapore, where you see luxury every day, unless you mostly wear avant-garde indie designers, or you're a designer yourself and you make your own clothes and sew your own bags, you will see items, no matter how expensive they are, on the streets. So I came to the conclusion a long time ago that my unique personal style has little to do with how common or rare the individual items that I'm wearing happen to be, and more to do with how I style things and put things together in my own unique way. So I don't get caught up in thinking that once a lot of people get something that I can no longer enjoy it, for fear that I'm going to be like everyone else. So even if I own the same item as many other people, we're all gonna style that same item in our own unique ways. I hope that makes sense. It made sense in my head. And the last reason that I don't luxury gatekeep is that if I love certain items or a brand and I want those things to endure and prosper, then it's just common sense that I would hope for a certain level of popularity. People have to buy it, or else it will be discontinued or the brand will go out of business. It's just not a reasonable expectation to love an item, perhaps want more of that particular item, and if I care about resale value, hoping that that item retains it, but then on the other hand, expect that very few people other than me own that item. That's just not the way life works. And if I really love an item, I want other people to experience it and enjoy it as well. And if other people then feel that the item becomes common, overexposed, basic, whatever, it doesn't bother me. I'm just not a luxury gatekeeper. My next luxury lesson learned is about trends. Now, I've said before that it can be a huge waste of money to go for trends that don't fit your personal style, but the lesson that I've learned is that when a trend really does fit your personal style, you may want to jump on it. So my example are the dad sandals trend. So the ugly sneakers trend would be a ridiculous trend for someone like me that barely wears sneakers in the first place. However, the dad sandals trend is really a trend that's right up my alley. I've been wearing Birkenstocks for the past 20 years, and there were never any nicer versions of them. So I should have jumped on dad sandals as soon as they came out, but I procrastinated, and now they're impossible to get. I don't think I want the Chanel ones just because they are extortionately expensive, but the Hermes ones are half the price of the Chanel, but I waited too long and now I can't get them. Now, I'm not sure if these brands are going to stop making these shoes once the trend is over, or it will become sort of like the Chanel espadrilles, where they were hot for a good long time, but even though they're not the most popular shoes right now, they now seem to be a part of Chanel's permanent collection. I'm hoping that that's what happens with the dad sandals, that everyone will be over the trend, but Hermes will still continue to make them and I can get them at some point, because these are super comfortable shoes and I'll probably continue to wear them for the rest of my life. So for someone like me, this trend fit my personal aesthetic. So once the trend is long gone, I will still be wearing Birkenstocks, so I would really love a more elevated version of these shoes. My next lesson learned, which is in line with the kind of person that I am in general, is that when it comes to luxury, I need clear boundaries regarding the number of bags in my collection, a wish list to use as a general guideline, a set annual budget which I can't go over, etc. This allows me to use, appreciate, and on a very practical level, store all of my luxury items, some of which are on display, but most importantly, most of the packaging is out of sight since I really enjoy a minimal, uncluttered space. This goes for all of my luxury items, but let's use handbags as an example, especially because I don't do much, if any, selling of bags. So if I were to buy 5-6 bags a year, there's no way I would be able to use and store all of those handbags after even just 2-3 years of buying bags. It allows me to use the things that I have, not have decision anxiety about having too many bags that serve the same function, and also financially I have to have a limit since I'm also not comfortable having too much money tied up in luxury. So for all those reasons, I need luxury limits, which include a specific total number of bags. Right now, that number is 25 bags. I don't have 25 bags, but that is the maximum amount of bags that I believe that I can comfortably own, use, and store. And that number includes designer and non-designer bags. My next luxury lesson learned is that affordability is different from priority. I used to say that there are just certain things that I can't afford, and there are definitely those things. So a Himalayan Birkin on the pre-loved market, I legitimately cannot afford to buy that bag. But barring those exorbitantly priced items, I've come to realize that for most things, when I say, oh, I can't afford that, what that really means is that it's not a priority for me, which changes my mindset from the idea that I am deprived of something to one in which I have more agency and I'm making an informed decision. And I'll give you an example. For a long time, I did not put the Van Cleef & Arpels diamond perlé white gold bracelet on my wish list because I said I can't afford it. And then a couple of years ago, I finally put it on my wish list because I realized it's not that you can't afford it, you've just chosen to buy other things instead. But maybe in a few years, my priorities will have shifted and maybe I won't be so interested in bags anymore and all of my other jewelry items will be crossed off my wish list. In that case, the diamond VCA perlé will be my number one priority. So I've just switched my mindset from I can't afford certain things to I'm choosing not to prioritize certain things right now. And my final lesson learned is that I do indeed have a collection of bags. And I know that sounds super random, but I remember my Chanel essay when I first started buying Chanel bags asking me, have you ever thought about adding a boy bag to your collection? And my response was almost defensive. I said to him, I don't have a collection. I use everything that I have. I don't really have that many bags. And I remember him giving me a look at the time, almost as if he was saying, I didn't mean to offend you. But now, a decade later, I realized that I became so defensive because today having a collection of bags just means that I have a group of bags that I buy, enjoy, and use. A decade ago, I think the word collection symbolized having a group of bags that sat on a shelf behind glass, most of which were too precious to use. And that's not always what a collection is. A collection is just a group of things that a person acquires. They can be used like cars or watches, or they can be stored and admired like stamps or baseball cards. However, in getting so defensive about whether or not my group of bags were in fact a collection, I think I was responding to my own internalized sexism because I was choosing to collect items that are not always but often collected by women. I know men who collect watches, wines, rare cigars, some of which sit unused, appreciating in value, and other parts of their collection are used and enjoyed. But none of these men have any qualms about calling those particular hobbies collections. And they don't feel the need to justify the size, purpose, or functionality of their collections. So while I don't have a particularly large collection of bags, I can now say in a very non-defensive way, yes, I do indeed buy bags that I use, enjoy, and collect. So that's it for my video, guys. Let me know what you think of the lessons that I've learned over the years buying luxury. Let me know if you've learned any lessons or come to any conclusions over your luxury buying career. I'm not sure I made this quite clear at the beginning, but these are just lessons that I've learned over many years of being a luxury enthusiast, rather than lessons that I'm trying to impart on you. Of course, it's great if any of these things resonate with you, but this was in no way intended to be a lecture. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel. That would make my day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.